As men get older, it's not love they fear, it's commitment. They're not afraid of falling in love, but of what it costs: sacrifice, vulnerability, and the risk of getting hurt. The truth is, men often shy away from commitment, but it's not because they don't care. It's because they're terrified of facing parts of themselves they'd rather keep hidden. Hi, it's Vernon again. In today's video, we'll explore why many men, especially after 70, avoid commitment. It's not a matter of love, but a matter of fear. Fear of losing themselves, of confronting their past, and of what true commitment demands. If this speaks to you, don't hesitate to subscribe to my channel. Perhaps this is the reminder you've been seeking, the one that helps you make peace with the fears we all carry before it's too late. Now, let's begin by looking at the first reason: the fear of losing one's identity. 1. The fear of losing one's identity in love. For men after 60, a quiet sense of self begins to take root, a rhythm, a way of moving through life that becomes deeply personal. Over time, the thought of committing to someone can start to feel like a threat to this sense of self. It's not that there's a lack of love in his heart. Rather, it's the fear that in opening up, something essential will be lost. I remember when this fear struck me head-on. In my early 40s, I was living a life that was very much my own. There was a comfort in my independence. I had built a world that was familiar and entirely mine. There was no one to answer to, no one to adjust for. My hobbies, my routines, my time, all of it was shaped around me. It wasn't that I didn't want companionship, but the idea of giving up this autonomy terrified me. Could I really share my life without losing the parts of me that defined it? I began to wonder, if I opened up to someone, what would I have to give up? The weekends alone? The quiet moments I cherished? Would I have to let go of the things that had kept me grounded for so long? The fear of losing my freedom, my identity, became too strong to ignore. In those moments, I couldn't see the possibility that love could coexist with my sense of self. I was afraid that a commitment would absorb me, leaving nothing of the man I had worked so hard to become. I feared becoming smaller, trapped in a relationship that didn't allow space for me to breathe. But with time, I began to realize something important. Commitment doesn't erase who you are. It allows you to expand. The love I was resisting wasn't about diminishing me. It was about pushing me to grow, to discover new parts of myself that I had been keeping hidden. Love doesn't take away your individuality, it deepens it. By committing to someone, you don't lose yourself. You find the pieces of you that were waiting to be seen, parts of you that you couldn't access alone. I discovered that love can enhance the man you are, not replace him. This fear of losing identity, however, isn't the only barrier to commitment. There's another, more painful one that many men face: the fear of heartbreak, of opening up again and allowing vulnerability to seep in. It's a deep fear, rooted in past pain, and it can keep a man locked away from the very connection he longs for. Let's look at that next. 2. The fear of heartbreak again. As the ancient philosopher Seneca wisely observed, it is not the suffering itself, but the fear of suffering that often torments us. This rings true for many men when it comes to the idea of opening up to love again. The pain of past heartbreaks lingers long after the relationship ends, and the thought of walking that painful path once more becomes enough to keep a man from even trying. When a man has loved deeply and lost, the scars of that experience can feel like an ever-present shadow. Each step toward a new relationship feels weighted by the fear that the same wounds will be reopened. It's not the act of loving itself that frightens him. It's the overwhelming possibility of loss, of heartache, and the unbearable thought of feeling shattered again. This fear is a form of emotional self-preservation. It's easier to stay guarded, to keep one's heart at a safe distance, than to risk the vulnerability that love requires. But what's overlooked in this defense mechanism is that by avoiding the potential pain, a man often locks himself away from the possibility of something far more fulfilling. The cost of this self-imposed isolation is not just the avoidance of heartbreak, but also the avoidance of growth that only comes through connection, vulnerability, and the willingness to love despite the risk. The fear of heartbreak doesn't simply keep a man from opening up to others. It keeps him from understanding himself more deeply. By closing off, he denies himself the opportunity to heal, to learn, and to truly experience the depth of human connection. The pain of heartbreak is inevitable, but it is not the end of the story. It is a passage, a journey that, though difficult, leads to greater wisdom and a more profound understanding of love. Avoiding heartbreak might protect a man from momentary pain, but it also leaves him trapped in the past, never fully embracing the richness that life and love has to offer. If a man ever hopes to experience the kind of intimacy and connection that makes life truly meaningful, he must be willing to face that fear head-on. Only through accepting the vulnerability that comes with love can he begin to heal, to grow, and ultimately, to live more fully. But there's still another fear that holds many men back from committing, one that strikes even deeper, a fear rooted in the weight of past mistakes and unhealed wounds. Let's consider that next. 3. The weight of unresolved past baggage. Have you ever wondered if a man can truly commit when his past still holds him captive? Many men face this silent struggle, unable to move forward because of the emotional baggage they carry. It's not just about the hurt they've endured. It's about the unresolved pain that lingers beneath the surface, affecting how they show up in every relationship that follows. There are things in a man's past that can't be shaken off so easily. Old wounds, unhealed scars, they stay with him, quietly influencing his decisions, his actions, and his hesitations. A man who has been hurt, betrayed, or left behind often struggles with the fear of opening his heart to someone new. The thought of sharing himself fully with another person feels like inviting that pain back in, as if the past might repeat itself. What's worse is the shame that accompanies these hidden wounds. No man wants to admit that he's still carrying the weight of past mistakes, regrets, or lost love. It feels like a burden he must bear alone, and the fear of exposing that vulnerability often leads him to shut others out. He may convince himself that it's better to keep things light, to avoid diving into something deeper, because the risk of repeating the same emotional turmoil is too great. Yet what many men don't realize is that by avoiding this confrontation with their past, they're only prolonging the pain. The more they ignore it, the heavier it becomes. It isn't until they face the source of that pain, acknowledge it, and begin the process of healing that they can release its hold. Only then can they move forward with a heart that's open and ready for love. In truth, the past will always be a part of who a man is, but it doesn't have to define him. The journey of healing is never easy, and it requires courage. The courage to confront the darkness and find the light within it. When a man can learn to accept his past, to embrace the lessons it has taught him, he frees himself to experience a love that isn't weighed down by old fears and unresolved grief. As painful as it may seem, only through acknowledging and working through the baggage can a man step into a new chapter of life, one where he's no longer bound by the past. And yet, even after this, there's another fear that holds many men back from fully committing: the fear of losing control in a relationship. Let's dive into that next. 4. The fear of losing control in a relationship. Control is a curious thing. It's not just a matter of having the ability to make decisions. It's about feeling anchored, safe, and in command of one's own existence. For many men, control is the silent force that governs their lives, offering a sense of structure in an otherwise unpredictable world. The idea of relinquishing even a small piece of that control in a relationship feels like standing on shifting ground, where the safety nets no longer exist. Love, by nature, doesn't respect the walls built around one's life. It demands something far more fluid, something organic that can't be neatly boxed in or predicted. A man who's used to living life on his terms, following his schedule, and making decisions without consultation can find this type of vulnerability unsettling. The thought of a partner influencing his choices, his routine, or even his inner peace is like introducing an element of chaos into a carefully crafted world. There's a delicate balance between freedom and connection, a paradox men often face. On one hand, they long for the warmth and intimacy that a relationship promises, but on the other, the risk of losing that sacred autonomy can feel suffocating. It's as though they fear stepping into a shared space might erase the boundaries that have defined them for years. This isn't just about control over others, but control over themselves, their emotions, their time, their purpose. When they allow someone else to enter the realm they've carefully built, they fear it could unravel everything they've worked for. But the irony is this: when the man clings too tightly to control, he often loses the very thing he craves. Love, in its truest form, doesn't require dominance or micromanagement. It requires trust. The kind of trust that says, "I can give a part of myself, and you will not take it from me. You will treat it with care." It's the willingness to allow another person into your life without feeling the need to dictate every moment or every outcome. If you've ever felt the tension of holding control so tightly that it becomes prison, know this: sometimes letting go is what truly sets a man free. Relationships, when built on trust and mutual respect, don't strip away your essence, they enhance it. They add richness to your life in ways control never can. And here's something to keep in mind. If this speaks to you, don't forget to save this video. It could be the reminder you need to let go just a little and open up to the deeper connections life is waiting to offer. And as we reflect on that, there's another fear, perhaps even deeper, that many men wrestle with: the fear of never being enough. Let's dive into it now. 5. The fear of never being enough. What does it mean to be enough here? For some men, this question is more like a quiet storm that rages within, casting shadows on every relationship. They look at their lives, the successes, the failures, the missteps, and often feel that no matter how much they achieve, they're still somehow lacking. The fear of never being enough, of falling short in love, creates an invisible barrier that keeps them from fully committing. Imagine a man standing before a mirror, scrutinizing every line on his face, every flaw, every imperfection. He sees not just the physical signs of aging, but the accumulation of experiences, the heartbreaks, the disappointments, the moments he feels he couldn't rise to the occasion. He wonders silently, am I enough to offer someone else, to truly be loved? Now, picture the opposite. Another man, standing in the same spot, but with a different perspective. He looks at his reflection not as a measure of his worth, but as a testament to everything he's lived through. Each wrinkle is a story. Each scar is a memory of growth. To him, enough isn't about perfection, it's about the willingness to show up as he is, to offer what he has, even if it's not flawless. The first man sees himself through a lens of inadequacy. He fears that his flaws are too much, that he's not capable of being the partner his loved ones deserve. The second man, on the other hand, recognizes that love isn't about finding someone who is perfect. It's about finding someone who accepts you as you are, imperfections and all. And it's only when a man realizes that he doesn't need to be perfect to be worthy of love that he can free himself from this paralyzing fear. We've just walked through 5 deeply personal reasons why many older men hesitate to commit. These fears of losing identity, of heartbreak, of unresolved past wounds, of control, and of not being enough are not just abstract concepts. They are lived experiences, felt deeply by those who have seen both the beauty and the pain of life. Understanding them is the first step towards breaking through the walls that prevent a fuller, richer connection. We've explored the 5 silent fears that often hold older men back from commitment. The fear of losing identity, of heartbreak, of unresolved past baggage, of losing control, and of never being enough. These are not mere abstract concepts. They are lived realities for many, shaped by years of experience, heartache, and growth. As the great philosopher Rainier Maria Rilke once said, "The only journey is the one within." And commitment, in its truest sense, is not just about another person. It's about confronting the parts of ourselves we've long avoided, the shadows that linger behind the walls we've built. It's about acknowledging our vulnerabilities and fears, and yet still choosing to love. Commitment requires a kind of courage, not the courage to be perfect, but the courage to be real. It asks us to embrace all that we are, flaws and all, and to trust that love won't diminish us, but instead will help us grow into something fuller, something deeper. It's in those moments of uncertainty and fear that we discover the truest parts of ourselves, parts that were waiting quietly to be seen. So as you reflect on these truths, remember that the fears we carry are not walls that need to keep us isolated. They are doors that, when opened, lead to growth, understanding, and connection. The path of love is not without its challenges, but it is a path worth walking. If this video has helped you understand something new, or perhaps brought clarity to fears you've been carrying, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Sometimes the simple act of sharing a thought or a story is all it takes to open someone else's door to healing. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of what holds us back. As you move forward, take to heart the words of Carl Jung, "I am not what happened to me, I am what I choose to become." Until next time, take care of your heart, and remember, love is not a loss of self, but the discovery of who you were always meant to be.